When I went to school, I realised when I was 12, I realised that I sounded different from everybody else. I actually still had an Irish accent, whereas all the other girls in my class spoke like normal people from Birmingham. And I only realised that I had an Irish accent because I wrote an essay and my teacher wanted me to read it to the class. So while I was reading it to the class, she recorded me and then she played it back. And that's the first time when I was 12 that I realised I didn't sound like anybody else around me.
I remember receiving one of my nephews in this country because I've had many nephews visiting their auntie in England. As you can imagine, it can be interesting for them. They have a base and they can do other things. And I remember one 9-year-old telling me, "Oh, why don't you come back? And I look after you, you know." And I said, no, I mean, I didn't feel at all like wanting to come back, to leave.
I spent most of my childhood in a place called Abbottabad, and it's a valley, just beautiful, so neat, so pretty. In spring, I always tell him we used to have so much fruit, so many fruit trees, and we just spent our childhood just eating those fruits. Because this country is quite hilly as well, there are not mountains as high as there were in Pakistan. When I look at the blossoms in spring and the fruit in summer, it reminds me of Abbottabad, of my childhood.
The dining table in Italy is a central part of the house. It's really a place where not only the food is consumed and eaten, but it's where the relationships are shared, and it's where the conversations happen. It's where you can feel the closeness of your loved ones. Whereas here, the fact that sometimes that object, the table, is even absent, makes me really see and think that there is a great difference in the way in which food is perceived here.
The food that always takes me back to my home country of Ireland is soda bread. Soda bread with Irish butter. That's the taste of Ireland for me, and a cup of tea, and a boiled egg, if I've picked the egg from the hedge myself.
So there is this particular dish, for example, that is very, very simple, and it's called in Italian fava e cicorie, which means fava beans and chicory, which I particularly like.
The food which takes me back to my country, Pakistan, is dahi bhalla. I think in Indians call it dahi bada, but Pakistanis call dahi bhalla. And that's what I loved as a child.
I think it would be samosa, because that's what we used to love having as children.
The tarte aux pommes, apple tart, cooked upside down. That brings me back home.
One is going to be rice with some peas in it, and the other one is going to be chicken. As children, it used to be a special event. Either it used to be a special weekend, like, maybe Christmas or Easter, or it used to be some guests who used to be coming over. And it used to, a lot of preparation went into preparing these two dishes.
One. And just stir the flours together. As many people make it anymore, but when I was living there in the 50s with my granny and granddad, that's what they ate every day, soda bread. With freshly churned butter. I don't get freshly churned butter anymore, but my granny used to make butter, and we'd eat soda bread with butter and milk for me, fresh from the cow. It wasn't pasteurised or anything, it just came straight from the cow that my granddad milked. Cows, should I say. And then, of course, when I got older, with a cup of tea. And the egg, that's perfect. Always takes me back, but I don't get that anymore because, of course, nothing is as fresh anymore.
The only thing is that it would be a variation of that today because, sadly, in the UK I could not find all the ingredients I needed for this, so I will use spinach leaves instead of chicory. It used to be the meal of the poor people, or people, farmers, people working in the fields. And nowadays they are rediscovering it and using it to promote our region. It became a sort of gourmet kind of dish. It just reminds me of the warmth of and the simplicity of the life within the house, in the families.
The tarte renversée, which is upside down, or tarte tatin as it is known in cookery books, bring back memories of happy gathering at home, and the smell of slightly burnt pastry, and laughter, and having a big family. It was always a lovely occasion.
My mum and dad had come to England to make a living. There were no jobs in Ireland. Ireland was a largely rural, agrarian society and economy, and they had large families and small farms, so only one child could get the farm. Everybody else had to find work somewhere.
When we went through medical school and graduated, we came to know that there was something like post-graduation that could be done here. And I always wanted to know what medicine was like over here. And then I got married and I told him about my decision. And he sort of agreed.
I was meant to marry a Spaniard and live in Spain, but at the time my fiancé wanted to get out of Spain, and he was being at the university in Salamanca. He was offered a job at the University of Leeds. And that was the only possibility for us to get married. And I didn't relish, to be truthful, the idea of coming to live in England.
So the reason why I left Italy is to follow a huge passion of mine. It's a bit interesting because actually this huge passion of mine really makes me even more tied to Italy, because this passion is the passion about the Italian poet Dante, who is kind of like the Italian Shakespeare. And so it's a bit funny that I had to move from Italy to study Dante.
beauty of soda bread is that you don't have to knead it. It's an instant bread. So you get the dough. You can see I'm just drying my hands with the flour so that I can handle the dough without having too much stickiness. And so I'm not kneading it, I'm just smoothing it. I have very strong memories of being in Birmingham and away from Ireland, and the first memory is there was no greenery, there was no grass, there were no trees where we lived. It was a fairly compact inner city estate, and I had no concept of roads, so I remember that I would run out the front door and I would not stop running, because in Ireland I'd been able to run out the front door and there was no limit whatsoever except the physical limits of a hedge or a wall, a dry stone wall. And in England I'd run out the house and I would run straight across the road. Luckily there were not many cars on that road, but I had no concept of pavements and curbs and cars. So I remember the indignity. I remember feeling terrible about it. My mum put me in reins when I was about 4 or 5, 4.5, something like that. You know, baby reins. Have you ever seen toddlers with reins? And I hated that. I remember that very strongly. And I realised it's because she couldn't stop me. She couldn't control me. I had no sense of traffic.
Put a bit of flour. When I moved in this country, it was 1959, and England was really grey. To me, my first impression of Leeds was a bit negative, especially in winter. But in terms of friendship and reception, welcoming, it was totally okay.
The sort of impression I had of the UK was not what I found when I came here, and the reason was that we were initially in London, in an area where we used to hear the police sirens all night long. So it was an area that was a bit sort of dangerous, I could say, and so I found it a bit depressing. Because we had exams, we were studying, we had a lot of pressure, we didn't have a job. And not having a job in a new country can be very daunting, and no family. So it was difficult.
I came in 1986 as well to UK before marriage, and so I was doing a medical course in a university in Wales. So over there I was living in a hostel, and there wasn't any Pakistani in that hostel, and the thing which I missed was food, because I was used to rice and chapati. I wrote back to my mother that when I come back, the first thing I would want to do is to eat chapatis. And also the other thing I missed was this language. I couldn't speak to anybody in Urdu language. And in those days, calling back home, Pakistan was very expensive.
So when I first moved here in the UK, it actually was not here in Leeds in England, but for some funny reasons I ended up in Scotland, in St Andrews, which still is one of my favorite places on this planet. The time I had there was actually wonderful, because St Andrews is a very particular place, it's very international, and I was very blessed because I found this wonderful community of people at the Catholic chaplaincy that made me just feel so welcomed, and I really felt, I don't know, that deep human connections that I always look for was really present there. And we would share a lot of food. I would cook for these friends some Italian special dishes. They would cook something from their own home culture. So that was really wonderful.
Life certainly wasn't a bowl of cherries in this country. It was very, very difficult for my parents to find work, to keep work, to make enough money. And I know that when They left us in Ireland with Granny and Grandad so that they could earn enough money, they could both work and earn enough money to buy a house for us.
Once they are cooked a little bit, just I'll give them a few minutes, then I'll put the rice in.
Whenever we went back home to Pakistan, we used to bring all these masalas. What is it?
Spices.
Spices from Pakistan, because these were not available here. And similarly, sometimes we brought rice from there. Yes, in those days, 34 years ago, you had to travel far away to get these things in UK. So things are easier now.
We were so used to having our own food, especially the street food. I mean, you can make home cooked food, that's not a problem, but it's the street food, you know, that you miss, because you just find that on the streets. You don't find that taste at home. So I loved samosas with chutney, and there was a time when I used to dream of samosas. And I used to wake up and find out that it was all a dream, and it was very sad.
All my memories, all my main childhood memories are from Ireland, and for many years after I was brought to this country, I still called Ireland my home, and I still referred to my granny as Mom, because that's what we called her, Mom. I don't know what my own mum thought about that.
After my time in St Andrews, I moved here in Leeds when it was time to finally start my PhD. And I found that transition way more difficult. I really had a hard time when I came here because I felt more alone, and I didn't find here that community that I had there in St Andrews. And one of the things I tried to do, in fact, when I came here was to try to cook some meal for, some of the people I was meeting, trying to, recreate that sense of community and human connection. But that was very difficult to do, and not because people are bad or something, it's just that they are not really used to that, and maybe they don't really value that as much as I do.
And I always like to say, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So then I feel my bread is blessed and everybody who eats of it. I was upstairs with Granny, and I heard a noise downstairs, and I looked over the stairs and saw a young woman, an attractive young woman, and she had my brother standing on the table, and she had a suitcase open beside him, and she was trying clothes on against him. And I said to my granny, "Oh, there's a strange lady downstairs, and she's got Peter on the table." And that was my mum. I didn't know her, I didn't recognise her. She took us to Birmingham soon after that. We travelled on the night boat. I remember she wrapped me in a large coat, and carried me to the boat on her arms. And as we went past the man with the ticket, I had to pretend to be a baby so that she didn't have to buy a ticket for me.
What else there was? Wherever you spend your childhood, you never forget it.
And as a child, there was no danger. We used to live in the church compound. There were, I think, about 15 houses, and children could go in anybody's house, and nobody was worried where our child has gone, because everybody looked after each other's children. We came across our Pakistani friends, doctors, who were almost in the same situation. They had come to UK to pass their exams, and they were trying to find jobs. So that's how we remained in touch with our community.
Won't it be enough pastry? Well, first I've got my son, although he only normally speaks English with me because his wife is English, and my granddaughter didn't learn French, although I've given her some lesson, but she's working in Bristol, so I can't, give her more lessons, and we speak in English. But I've got my daughters who live in Spain, but they always speak French with me, and we can go from one language to another. I mean, I'm forgetting my Spanish, but I like, when I've been to Spain, I recover some of it quite easily, surprisingly, but maybe less than in English. And then we used to go to France every summer and to Spain. So we stay connected, and I follow very closely what's happening in France. And sometimes I'm quite worried. But who is not worried about one's country these days? So,
into the very hot oven. The main way I think that we connected with our culture was through the church. All the Irish in the neighbourhood, and there weren't many Irish, there were more people coming all the time. They all knew each other through the parish, through the church. My dad used to get a magazine called the Ireland's Own, and that always contained the words of songs. And I would sit there holding the Ireland's Own with the words of the songs, and I would test my dad to see whether he knew the songs. My dad was very keen on keeping a sense of Ireland in our family culture.
It's everything that is related to what makes us human, what makes us feel connected to one another, and everything that has to do with beauty and good taste. So definitely one thing that makes me feel more connected to my roots is literally really what I study. But also I do find that, when I find someone, again, that is more familiar with his or her own humanity, and so doesn't only think with the head but also with the heart. And sometimes also to go back to some of the flavors of my childhood, when I'm able to find some of the real product here. Or to be honest, sometimes I take them from home, I bring them here and I share them with my friends because I want them to try and feel the real taste.
That looks good. It's getting nice and brown. And it's very easy to test whether soda bread is done. You simply turn it upside down. Very important. Very quickly, immediately wrap it in a clean tea towel. My sister has gone to live in Ireland. My sister didn't live in Ireland. She was born in England and she stayed in England, but she's recently retired to a beautiful place in southwest Cork, not far from Ockerville, not far from my granny's house. And they're living a beautiful life and everything is lovely. But I'm not sure I could live in Ireland again, because the Ireland I remember doesn't exist. It's just a fragment from the past, and I enjoy the benefits of this country too much.
Yes, we did initially when we came. So after about 7 years, we had done our post-graduation. We had 3 children by then. So we went back because we thought, okay, we're going to settle back in our own country. And we realized that we had spent probably too long here and got used to this country. So we stayed there for 2.5 years and then came back here. Now we've been here for almost 30 years. So that's equivalent to what we sort of started off. So we have spent half our life in Pakistan and the other half here. And our children are used to this place. So no, we wouldn't want to go back and settle there.
I think I do want to stay in the UK for some time. If anything, because some of the close friends I have are now here, and I feel like I am starting to, begin a new life here, almost settling my roots here. And the idea of uprooting myself again to move somewhere else that will be new is not something that I particularly fancy. So there is that. Also because if I really want to keep doing what I'm doing, so following, this love I have for Dante and the desire I have to keep doing my research and teaching, there is not much possibility if I go back to my home.
I've grown roots in this country. And to me, it's part of Europe. It's part of the place where my children were born. I've got friends, and I feel totally at home in this country. Even if sometimes even the language eludes me, but, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's by the heart you communicate, so I'm quite happy in this country.
The most important thing for me is the people that are still there. And it just brings me so much joy to be able to see them, not just to talk to them, over phone, but see them, be with them.
I mean, you can make chicken in lots of different ways. This is just one of them. So I hope.
I have always been happy and enjoyed my visit for a week or 2 or 3 whenever I visited. And I do want to go back again.
It's still nostalgic when you go. So I'm just trying to quickly look at all the places and see how they've changed.
As soon as the boat would approach Ireland and I could see the green and I could see the hills, every single time I cried. And it was like, I'm home. It smelt different.
And it was an immense pleasure, the beauty of the countryside and, I felt at home. Chez moi.
Avala.
Casa.